Hello, and thank you for having a listen to this week's episode of Secure Insights with NDK Cyber. Now, as many of you may know, NDK Cyber are first and foremost a cybersecurity recruitment company. We hire cyber talent globally, whether that's niche skill sets, tricky locations, or you're scaling rapidly. The chances are we've done it before and we can help you do that again. Now, we started the Secure Insights series really as a way to shine a light on important areas, tackle hot subjects, and also give people a platform to tell some pretty cool stories. Now, this week, I think we hit all of those markers pretty well. I'm joined by Kristian Kamber, the CEO and co-founder of SPLX. SPLX are an end-to-end platform to test, protect, and govern AI within your organization at scale. Now, in this episode here, we talk through Chris's journey and his background. We we really get into the state of AI security right now. We talk about where SPLX can come in. We talk around the whole challenges overall within this AI arena that we're all facing at the moment, and ultimately who needs to be mindful of this, along with what Chris is looking forward to going forward as well. So very excited to be able to share this episode with you. Hope you enjoy. Chris, thank you for jumping on.
Thank you, James.
Do you want to give us a quick overview of, I guess, your background, what you're up to at the minute, and what's got you here?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, my name is Chris. I'm one of the two co-founders of SPLX. We are an AI security company with the focus on offensive security for AI and red teaming and security testing. And yeah, we've come a long way out of Europe to basically New York in the United States. Grew up in Germany, have led businesses there, been in IC there, done business and consulting both, and had always the dream of building a company, a tech company. I knew I need to have the right technical founder for that kind of thing, and basically met my co-founder back in Croatia when it was COVID times, and everyone just moved to the beach. And yeah, since then we've been in contact, and he had basically back then the idea to build a kind of a guardrail for LLMs. That was in the early days because there were ChatGPT and LLM based applications already. But we couldn't find the right traction in Europe, and apparently find the right customer in the beginning to say, hey, what about breaking those models, and what about finding those vulnerabilities before we secure them in real time? And that's the whole story. Like, that's how we never pivoted back again from red teaming into something else. The security testing is just our core, where everything else we build on top of it.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So what, COVID times, you're talking about LLMs?
Yeah, I mean, just
Wow.
post, like, we met in COVID, and then after post-COVID, kind of everything started LLMs like 22, 23, and I was just at the peak of the time when I met my co-founder, right? It was just luck. And I always say that, like, if you do the right things, the right job and the right opportunity will come to you. It came to me. I didn't find it. I was not looking for it actively. I was some sort of. I was talking to people, and I knew his brother-in-law. He was working actually for a UK-based startup called Banked. And I told
Okay.
him like many years ago, hey, if you're looking for a co-founder, technical founder, just give me a shot. Like, maybe you can elaborate. And he said to me, hey, maybe it's not me, maybe it's my brother-in-law. And that's how it all started. So I always encourage young people and people who are basically, if they're hungry enough and basically spending a lot of time to meet other people, that the right opportunity will come to you. You will not. Uh, it will come to you basically, and that's how it was for me back in the old days. Gartner, Cisco, App Dynamics, Zscaler, everything.
That's awesome. What an organic connection rather than I know sometimes, and it's not, whether it's right or wrong or not, I don't know, but sometimes organizations and sort of founding CEOs or CTOs are kind of put together by VC or whoever it might be, but you found yourself a very organic connection through your brother-in-law. How nice, I guess.
Yeah, it's a strange story, but it's a true story because I was actually in the situation to build with my brother a startup, a totally different thing. And it was the right time for both of us to elaborate on something. And we were both unhappy with our jobs, and I couldn't see myself climbing the corporate ladder. And I was always discussing about that. And like, hey, one day I need to do it, right? I had no clue how hard it is. I had no clue what to expect. And I since then, I mean, I haven't looked back, and then what we have accomplished so far, and unbelievable, right? And that's all out of Europe. And now, of course, we're moving to the US and move to the US and build a team in the US. But everything has a story behind and everything has its history. So the history is like that we really started doing global business out of Europe and for cybersecurity, which is not easy if you're not like in the US or Tel Aviv. So everyone knows that. So looking back, it's unbelievable, and looking forward, it's even way more what we can expect as of now, looking at the market and the dynamics of the market.
Of course. And we'll get on to some of the accolades and successes you've seen so far and later on in the podcast. But just for the moment, AI security, it's being thrown around left, right, and center. It's difficult to ignore these days. What's kind of your assessment on the state of AI security across enterprises today?
Yeah, it evolved a lot since we started. When we started, there were single LLM deployments, chatbots, customer-facing chatbots, kind of wrappers on LLMs, and not really vulnerabilities internally. And now we're talking about already internal vulnerabilities and internal AI assistants, AI agents, and we're talking mainly about data poisoning, reg poisoning, anything which is related to your basically your knowledge source, knowledge base, and which where data can leak out, and specifically also your customer data can leak out. It's becoming very serious. It's becoming very serious, and people are caring more and more about that, and especially Fortune 500 have large amount of AI deployments and AI, I would say, projects, and not a lot of them go into production. And that's why they need to make sure they're safe and secure before they move into production, because the pressure is huge. We started with a kind of a hype back then with ChatGPT. Now it's a pressure to leverage generative AI in your environments and in your critical infrastructure, but also building applications and stuff. So it evolved a lot, and maybe one example is also that we, as I said, we started with single LLM deployments and text-to-text chatbots. Now we're talking about voice, we're talking about image uploads, document uploads, PDF uploads, Excel uploads. We're talking about backdoor attacks and all sorts of new attacks which evolve out of not only after prompt injection jailbreaks. So I think the adoption and the importance on the corporate level is driving the importance for AI security. And what people do and what Fortune 500 companies do currently is they build whole teams around AI security, which report directly to the CISO, ideally. So it's a direct line to the CISO. And when we look at the top banks globally, they already have 30, 40 people handling AI security internally
Wow.
for any sorts of things. Yeah, so exactly. And it's not only about chatbots, as I said, it's also about AI workflows, AI components, AI bill of material, creating the full visibility of your AI stack. But yeah, can talk about that later. So it's definitely a growing field, and I don't think it's just hype.
Yeah, it seems to be growing rapidly. And I think there's a difference. If we go back a few years now, yeah, we did a fair amount of recruitment around application security engineers. And the kind of narrative then was these developers have built all these fantastic apps and systems and everything else, but there was no security. So we're kind of going back to building security into it now or trying to correct it. Whereas from what you've just said there, it kind of feels like this time around we're getting ahead of that and we're building security into AI as much as we can beforehand. So with that being said, what are the, I guess, the emerging threats you're seeing within the AI systems today? Is it that data poisoning and data leakage? Is that kind of the
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think internal, like a lot of like there's a lot of chatbots with disclaimers and saying, hey, we're not liable for ABC. But I think leaking really, if there's no PII or confidential data in your AI components, then it's not an issue. But if you're dealing with, I would say, if you're insurance or your bank, and you're dealing with, I don't know, credit card numbers and birth dates and addresses, and it becomes serious. And people are not aware of those kind of things, and they're just putting in the prompts, this stuff. It becomes interesting. And I think, especially when you're talking with someone internally, it can be a student who has access, who can get access to your data. So it's not only the threat from the outside, it's the threat from the inside. Threat from the inside can be, as I said, can be a student who's basically uh, um, stealing all your data because it's in the prompts and it's in the chatbots, right? And through privilege access or through some access controls and prompt injection, context leakage can steal internal but also external data, pretty much. So this is what we see as a major threat. And beside those threats in terms of stealing data and data exfiltration, it's also about brand and bias awareness. So, for example, safetiness. Are you really the brand you're supposed to be? Are you offering equal products and equal prices and equal services to your customers, not depending on origin and color and religion and whatever? It's really, really crazy what those models can basically create is because they're trained on public data and sometimes they just behave differently to different types of people. It's also a threat for me because and another thing is hallucinations. A hallucination is something we should be caring about because if you're, for example, a healthcare AI app or whatever and offering some services and some recommendations on taking medicine, which happens to be in the US as well, very much often, it's really dangerous because it can hallucinate. It can give you the wrong recommendations without going too much in detail. So it's not only about data loss and data exfiltration, which is the most clearest thing which can happen, but it's also about hallucination and low performance and bad performance and basically fake news as well to your users, right? And not only that you lose the user, but you also can have some potential liability issues, and legal issues.
That's a lot to digest there. So would you say that's what you've just discussed there? Is that kind of the blind spot we're looking at here? Is in, do you approach organizations and they're kind of aware they have this problem but not quite sure how to fix it? Or is it you're approaching organizations and they're saying, oh, we didn't realize, crikey, we better fix
Yeah,
this, help us, what's the kind of
yeah.
narrative there?
We did that last year where organizations were pretty immature about knowing actually what's the threat. And because we were working like across the globe with any set types of sizes of companies, but now we exactly know who to approach. And we, for example, work with Uber, we work with
Wow.
Rakuten, we work with Deloitte and KPMG. They exactly know what are the threats, and they have like AI frameworks which are mapping actually to the right capability testing and security testing, and actually what needs to be done in a kind of statistical way or in a kind of a research way, but then they need practical advice and need a practical software which can help them to advance those adversarial testing capabilities, which is SPLX. So actually, we would love to talk to people. Actually, the more we talk to people currently, it's more people who know actually what's the threat, and this is the way to go. I can't currently spend my time with an organization who actually is not aware of the threats because it's just then not the nature of their business to care about those threats. I think threats would come to them immediately as they deploy AI at scale. And I think that's why we work even with Fortune 50, Fortune 100. Then they're the companies who care most about those kind of things because they will deploy AI in any type of sense, right, and manner and direction. So not only customer facing chatbots.
That's interesting. It kind of, we've had a few other conversations with people similar to yourself in this AI security space, and they've said that they kind of get mixed reviews of like what you've just said there are companies that are aware they have this problem, and some are just saying, look, we think it could be a problem, but we've got a security team. We haven't really got the budget to stretch or the attention to stretch to it. So it seems to be a really funny dynamic in the market at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I mean, it doesn't make for us as a startup, it doesn't make sense to spend time with companies who don't really have the budget or really didn't have the mandate.
Mm.
You have to spend time with companies who have a mandate because then you can actually compare yourself to the competitors in the market. You can provide the right value and you can get to the right stakeholders in the business. And you will. And the good thing is we have like, I don't know, 30 enterprise clients as of now, and everyone has different views. And this is also beautiful because you don't have one big giant customer who owns your roadmap. We exactly know in which direction we want to go as a business, but also we hear left and right what would be needed, like a proper nice guardrail product, for example, a lightweight guardrail product which has a low effect on latency, whatever. Or, for example, having full visibility of your AI workflows, having a full dashboard for the CISO. So there's a lot of things we hear left and right, and based on that feedback, we built our roadmap. So, and but again, the core and it will always be the core is the security testing because it will not stop. When we talked about it 2 years ago, we said it's 5% attack surface. Now maybe it's 7% because look at the voice chatbots and the voice bots and the cars who are already having those kind of AI models embedded into their communication with the driver. There's so many things which can happen. I cannot even imagine, because you will always surpass the guardrail. You can always surpass the guardrail. There's no 100% safety or security as of now. What we know, there is limitations to the usage of this model and this application. But is it really what we want? Because we want the users to have full capability of those generative AI capabilities, right? If you limit the usage and if you just basically put a very aggressive protection, it's not really it doesn't really help you as a user, and will not convert the user. Like, the most important for customer facing apps is to convert the user. And that's where we're talking about hallucinations. Internally, there must be way more guardrails and way more safeguards in order to protect the user itself, right? But also awareness for the users.
And is that kind of where we're differing from traditional security as opposed to what we now need to do in an AI age?
Traditional security is definitely incomparable, because the people who are dealing with AI security should be kind of different. I mean, a lot of offensive security folks and a lot of security folks been decades in the industry are dealing now more with AI. They educate themselves and they are doing, like, I don't know, manual prompt injection, trying to play with those models, play with those apps, and try to educate themselves. But that's 0.5% of the industry. If you go to any traditional cybersecurity team, you will see that they would always need an AI person to connect the API and to connect the testing platform and to understand what kind of tweaks and twists we need to do in order to do the proper testing. So I think in an ideal world, we will combine AI engineers and data scientists to help the cybersecurity teams to secure AI at scale in an ideal world. So I guess that's how I see it. Or if businesses have enough money, they will just build those AI security teams. And as I said, those teams completely interact differently or separately from the original cybersecurity teams.
I got you. Okay, cool. It sounds like there's a big shift happening at the moment. So, with that in mind, I wanted to get your take on the whole regulatory body piece here, because it seems to be
Yeah.
again a bit of a state of flux. So, regulatory bodies are coming in, and we're moving into AI governance. I've heard from both sides of the fence here, but do you think AI policy is kind of keeping pace with the technical threats that are emerging?
Absolutely not. I mean, we spoke a lot about the EU Act, which is a kind of just a major legislation everyone is scared of. There's no practical advice on how to do AI security testing. There are some smaller frameworks like OWASP Top 10, but also not going too much in detail, saying, hey, prompt injection should be tested with those kind of 10 variations, whatever. Like, it's always hard to keep pace with the innovation of hacking and with the innovation of attacks, because it's just the nature of things.
Mhm.
Companies are just traditionally first deploying blue teaming capabilities and firewall capabilities in order at least to prevent something. But in this case, AI shows a difference, because in order to keep it safe, you should do continuous testing. That's our proposition. And I think frameworks are nice and they're important, but there's no global framework currently which is saying, hey, this is the absolute true law enforcement, and there's not even law enforcement, which is giving the CISO the full capabilities of AI security testing and AI security practice. And then on another note, how to be liable, right? How to implement something which is really liable and can be reported to the business and to its customers. So I think everyone is relying on different frameworks, like NIST framework, which is pretty decent. The OWASP one, which is not a must-have, it's not legally binding. And then you have the industry-specific ones like DORA or HIPAA, but they're not going into much details on how to really do AI security practice. What kind of rules to hire, what kind of measurements to do, what kind of testing, what kind of interactions to do, what kind of timeline, how many time, what is the timeline in between testing? Like, there's a lot of things like, and also they're just saying, hey, you should deploy guardrails, you should deploy AI governance controls and frameworks, and you should do AI security testing. But how, right? Even Gartner is not really specifying in detail what should be done, because not everyone knows, right? And then you have those back bounty hunters and hackers of the world, like Rezo or Pliny the Prompter, who are basically evading those models as easy as they can. So, and yeah, I think there should be a compliance framework, but I think it's all in the very much beginning, I would say, and not really knowing on how to do that.
It does feel that way. It just feels like we don't really know what this is yet. Even going back, if we took this conversation back 6 months ago, I'm sure we'd be having a very different conversation about what's going on in the space at the minute as opposed to now. Yeah, and we've seen companies
Yeah.
that are in this space and expecting product releases in, say, Q4, and they've actually brought it forward to Q2 or Q3, which is not something you really hear about, but it seems to be more and more that's happening. So I think
Yeah, a
that
lot
gives you an
of
indication.
businesses. Yeah, a lot of businesses in our space are also claiming they do AI red teaming and automated and stuff. It's all semi-automated. What they do is they're going to say, "Hey, James, you work for the NHS. Okay, there's applications for the NHS. Oh, give it to us for 2 weeks, and we'll analyze the domain, and we'll come back to you with the proper testing." But that's not a one click at all. That's not an automation at all. That's a semi-automated approach towards security testing. What you need is actually the capability of building a custom scanner, what we do. And I don't want to too much push on our product, but I think it's super important to understand the non-deterministic behavior of LLMs, the agentic, creating agentic system that can also generate you new attacks that also can help you to keep the pace. So attacking LLMs with LLMs is kind of the direction we're going into, I would say, or agent-to-agent communication. This is what we're going to, right? And that's why already companies like Checkpoint already discussing about building a gateway for MCP server, which is crazy. Half year ago, we're still talking about model benchmarks and model security. But I mean, it's moving at a pace where I see innovation happening, but not still a lot of businesses globally are still just elaborating on LLMs, right? It's just the case.
You mentioned there you don't want to talk about your product too much, but I think because it's so necessary to the conversation, let's not avoid it. But for those that
Yeah.
aren't familiar, where do you guys come in? How do you fix the problem that's there?
And we ideally come in when you're in pre-production. You're not in production with your application, with your agent, and you try to test for ideally you have a set of questions and answers which you basically don't want to be mentioned in your application. So you actually know what are the boundaries and what are the safeguards, and we try to test for those kind of safeguards, which we call guardrail evasion and custom scanner. So you can basically do gray box testing and black box testing with us. It's fully automated, so there's not many information we would need in order to do a proper scanning. But of course, that also triggers the false positive low rate. So I think we are most well known in the market for having a very accurate testing platform, less than 1% false positives, and it's also about the newest and zero-day text exploits. So whenever OpenAI patches the latest jailbreaks, we try to cope with that every 2 weeks and try to embed those new attacks. We're basically screening with human in the loop into the platform, but we always retest it and redefine it with human in the loop. So I think we have currently 11 AI researchers,
Mhm.
and the number is growing. So we will never go away from this kind of research AI red teaming approach in order to actually see whether an attack can be successful or not. And this is the whole value proposition, including, of course, massive number of integrations like Splunk, Wiz, etc., trying to help the companies to integrate the software in the right way, as well as in the CI/CD pipeline, and of course providing remediation steps. And as part of remediation steps, we help you to build proper guardrails, but also taking your code and improving your code. And that's why we're going to more towards this shift left approach, which is static code analysis, AI repository analysis, AI bomb analysis, to give you full visibility of your whole AI workflows. So that's why it's interfering a bit with the ASPM, and monitoring. Yeah, but again, this is shift left is our core, and we'll stay our core.
Nice. Okay, cool. And I was going to say to you, it's not just the testing piece. I know that's sort of the where it all begins, but it's the runtime, it's the remediation, it's governance and compliance. There's a few other strings to the bow, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a full platform, but again, I always love to say we're not the Swiss knife, as everyone is pitching the Swiss knife. We can be a Swiss knife if it's dedicated and prepared and spend some time, but I think we're an essential part of the Swiss knife where you can basically detect and protect with some nice governance and compliance controls, even custom compliance. So if you have a compliance framework on your own built for your company, like the KPMG AI framework, you can map it against our probes and our scanners for real. And but again, it always depends on the use case. The good thing is on the security testing piece, there doesn't matter which use case it is, right? We can help you instantly.
Understood. And you mentioned there you've always got a human in the loop and you have your researchers in place. So taking, I guess to summarize, how would that differ from a traditional sort of testing team internally?
I mean, it doesn't differ that much because internal testing team has their own human capabilities. but the current AI deployments can't give them enough time to scale. So you have a very dedicated and a very experienced red teamer. I don't know, like in Electronic Arts, Johan Rehberger, who's a legend, but he can't do everything alone. So what the problem is now with deploying those AI models and giving full capacity capabilities and feedback to your CISO and the business, you need to have a tool. What people do is using a tool like Garak or Pirate, which is open source, and they tweak it and rebuild it and retest it. That has been done with some of our customers, and they saw, oh wow, with SPLX, I can do basically one-click integration and can give a bit of a tweak and twist. They can even upload their own custom data set from previous testing, all put that in one platform and just read it out, and you will see the results. And people are amazed and say, I can't believe this works all automated, right? So this is the thing. And basically, when you see the results, we always find our ways through the model and through the app, right? And that helps the customer, basically, and the user to improve the system prompt, to harden it, and to go back into production or try to go into production. So that's the whole story. It's an automation tool. It helps you with the ROI, not spending a lot of money with the penetration testing providers, services providers, which I think still are the real competitors, because there's no product, right? There's no product. There's a halfway product with open source, but you need to, as you know, with open source, always you need to invest a lot of time to build it the proper way for yourself and your business.
Yeah, it's not just an off-the-shelf one-click type thing. And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
have you got like an example or two you're able to, obviously don't mention names, but to bring this to life a little bit, how you've helped an organization?
Yeah, so one example is the open source thing. So big Fortune 100 customer, they had an open source using Pirate, and they were thinking this is the real way. And then, of course, the management had some pressures on them with a 48-hour SLA to deploy a model production. And they couldn't cope with the SLA that much, and they were looking for a kind of a tool which can help them accelerate. The other thing is a GSI, so kind of a big four consulting firm. They're selling penetration testing services, white labeled reports to CISOs, etc. And they couldn't do it manually anymore. So even though they sell top services on top of it, as I fully believe that the AI market, the generative AI market, is still a services market, less of a product market, because the productization is happening in B2C, not in B2B that much. Those companies like KPMG, Accenture, PwC, they're selling a lot of services on top of those kind of things. And that's why they love such a tool set and tooling they would have with SPLX. Basically, they can do 20, 30, 50x on top of it of
Wow.
resell. And this is one of our plays. And we work with Japan a lot, with Korea. They are super advanced in deploying domain-specific applications in agentic systems. And for them, for example, it's also important that the model is not biased, not hallucinating, that we're talking the right language, that we're talking the right manner. So every region is specific to a certain type of attack. And this is what I love about this market, right? If you go to the Nordics, everything is about the bias and the fairness. If you go to the States, it's all about hallucination and customer conversion. If you go to a law firm in UK, they will talk about data exfiltration and data poisoning. So this is the beauty. I mean, it's also the danger about the market. But for us, of course, it shows that we are like in cloud security in 2008 at the maximum.
Mm.
So imagine I was in Zscaler. I think the cloud proxy product just started to flying around 2011, 2012, which is the core product today. So it took them 5 years to really fly. And I imagine the same here to be happening in the AI security space. It will still evolve. It will still show after a few years which kind of products are needed to secure AI at scale. And my biggest hope is just that the products and the tech will win, and not any type of political discussion or political preferences according to the global frameworks, because frameworks and compliance frameworks can also impact a tech in the business, right?
No, of course. Of course. It sounds like the place to be. It sounds like there's an awful lot happening here. And even this year for you guys alone, it's been what? Yeah, seed funding, rapid sort of client acquisition, huge quarter-on-quarter growth. What are you excited about for the next 12 months or so?
I'm excited about a lot of things. First of all, growing the company and doing Series A and growing this company further. And I think building the next kind of sneak and check marks for AI. To be honest, I think we can do that. Um, Looking back, as I said, we don't have always time to look back, but I think we've achieved amazing things. We're now 30 people, which I couldn't have imagined before. Last year we were like we're probably 11 or 10 people, even less.
Wow.
So we grew a lot, and we're growing still a huge here a lot in the tech space and the R&D space, which is showing that the product is needed, that the product has a great adoption. Which excites me the most is seeing increased adoption of the product and the platform. Also upselling my customers because we have a very low entry level and barrier, and selling also through credits. We're not limiting the customer to number of users or apps. I'm trying to really do a fair commercial model, which people can just buy some credits as you go and buy a kind of a shopping card, and you fill the shopping cart with $50, the same as how we do our business, right? So this is important to say, and what excites me is also seeing other businesses, despite the ones we're seeing today, how they will adopt AI, right? I'm talking about healthcare, talking about biochemicals, biomedicine, talking about banks more because they're a bit slower. Talking about Europe, I hope it will come out a bit. I think I see big shift also in UK, which is also speeding up in terms of generative AI adoption, which makes me happy. But I think I'm also looking for other markets, and this is exciting. And then of course, yeah, we're also about to scale our go-to-market, having a head of sales and having a proper organizations. As I said in the beginning, operations. I want to still have operational excellence and establish that in my business because this is something which startups are always lacking, and hiring the right people. This is super important for growing this business and having customers having like big customers who see actually, hey, this is not a business which will disappear in a few weeks or months. This is something I can build on in the future as well, right? And this excites me the most.
This is awesome. It sounds like it's right at the beginning, but there's so much has happened already. So, no, it's great to hear. Well, thank you for jumping on today. I really appreciate all your time and everything. I know you're a busy guy, so all the best for everything, and we'll chat again soon.
Appreciate it. Yeah, all the best, and see you soon.
Cheers, Chris. Take care.